The goal of Reaction Plan Manager is to display adjustment instructions to the operators on the shop floor in a way in which it's easy for them to understand. One method of displaying the information is to use the detail view. The detail view includes images with your dimension items pointing to items on the image. So for example, you could use part of a print and have the dimension items point to characteristics on the print to make it easy for them to understand. To set up the detail view is a two-step process. You first have to organize your dimension items into groups. You have to place them into groups in your solution. A group equates to like a page. The second step is to add the images and manipulate the dimension items so it points to the characteristics on the image. This video will lead you through the process of setting up groups and adding the image content. When you design your reaction plan, you can organize your dimensions by group. Groups are used to clarify the information and manage your dimension items. For example, let's say I've got the measurement data for a process that controls 3 tools. I could group the dimensions by tools. When you group the dimensions, you can display the groups in the detail view. Groups in the detail view are kind of like pages. So I would have 3 different pages inside the detail view to display that information. Another reason to group the items is to manage the dimension items. So for example, let's say I'm using a reaction plan and it's controlling a process, and it gives instructions to the operator to make adjustments to tool 1. The operator knows he's going to make adjustments to tool 1 and cut some more parts. You can design your reaction plan so that a button is displayed in that group, and if he hits that button to acknowledge he's going to make the adjustment, it'll zero out all the dimensions in that group, expecting new measurement data to come in after he makes an adjustment and cuts the part, and it should correct the problem. So groups are used for a variety of reasons. To create a group, it's really pretty simple. The easiest way to do that is to use what we call the dimension organizer. The dimension organizer is this button right here. If I click on that button, it'll bring up a page. I should say bring up a window. You'll see a list of dimensions on the left that are not in a group. To create a group, you simply highlight the dimensions you want to include in a group and then hit a button down here to insert a new group. There are other things you can do in this list as well. I can duplicate dimension items, I can cut and paste, insert new dimension items, things of that nature. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to group this reaction plan into 6 different groups, 1 for each hole. So I'll click on the dimensions that I want to include in a group. Click on the Insert New Group button. I'll continue to do that for, I'll continue to do that for all the dimensions. And one more. You notice I've got them out of order here, so I can move them up and down, move the groups up and down. You notice when I click on an item here, the window changes, or I should say this area of this window changes. You can make modifications to the dimension item or the group that you clicked on. So let's say I want to change the name of each one of these. So I'm calling it group. I'll call it hole 1, hole 2, hole 3, hole 4, hole 5, and hole 6. If I want to add an image to each group, I can click on the add button down here and add an image. I'm not going to do that right at this time. So I've got my groups, I at least got my groups organized into the dimension items that I want into each group. I'll say OK. And now you notice my summary page has changed. They're now organized in groups. So I've got hole 1, hole 2, hole 3, hole 4, hole 5, hole 6. If I click on the detail view, you'll notice I've got 6 tabs down here, one for each group, hole 1, hole 2, etc. There are settings that will influence how the information is displayed in a group. Some settings affect how it's displayed in the summary view, and other settings will influence how it's displayed in the detail view. Let's switch to the summary view and talk a little bit about how the information is displayed. At the top of the group, you have the name of the group. Below that, you have a list of messages. The messages come from the dimension items. The order in which the dimensions are displayed are equal to the order in which the dimensions are added to the group. If you want to change that, you can click on the group. The window changes, and you have additional settings over here on the right that I can change for this group. The first setting, of course, is the name. I can change that to whatever. The next setting is the message when all the dimensions in a group do not meet severity level. In other words, what's the default message if everything is good? The next setting is the severity levels. Right now, the normal is unchecked. So if there is a message, I should say if there's a dimension that is normal, it won't be displayed in the group. If you want to include the feature name in the message, they're talking about up here in the header block, or in this block here, message block. You check that and it'll include the name of the dimension item. Sequential evaluation. This is kind of a nice one when you're in the summary view. If I have this checked, it will only show you the first message that meets the severity level. So the order in which you have the dimension items added to the group will influence the message that appears here in this message block. Process reset. This is, if I check this, it will include a button here which the operator can press to acknowledge he's going to make an adjustment. I mentioned this earlier when I introduced the group function, the group feature. You may have a situation where you want the operator to actually follow the instructions and make an adjustment. He can press on this button and it'll zero out all the dimensions in the group, because whatever he's adjusting is going to influence all these dimensions. I can add a picture to the group. This really applies to the detail view. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And the rest of these menu selections, the rest of these settings really are pertinent to the detail view. Now once you're done filling this out, if I click on the Save Changes button, you'll notice for machine A, I now only have one message in the message block because I've got the sequential evaluation checked. You also have the press button if adjustment made. That button is displayed because there are some dimension items that fall within the warning and the critical criteria. If we switch to the detail view, we don't have a message block, so that information is not displayed. However, we do have a button at the top. Press button if adjustment made. The detail view offers a way to show the report in a very easy to understand way for the operators. You can include images with dimension items with leaders on them pointing to items on the image. So how do we set that up? Well, the first thing you have to do is organize your dimension items into groups. A group equates to a page inside the detail view. So in this example, we've already done that. We've got holes 1, hole 2, hole 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to focus on hole 1. The first thing I want to do is add a picture to the group. To do that, I'm going to click on the Add button here under Picture. I'll click on Add. It brings up this window. Now, the way it works is you will add images as resources to your solution. And you can just reference those images. So I'm going to click on Add Image. And I've got an image I want to use on the desktop. We'll use this simple holes image. Then I'll click on that and say Open. And that will add this image to this group. Now I also want to change the background color. I'll change the background color to this purplish blue color. You can also change the size of the image. I can adjust the scaling of the image. I'm going to leave it set to 1 for now. I'll click on the Save Changes, and the image was added. Now, it's simply a matter of clicking on the image or the object and dragging it around. I can click on it and drag it around. Click on a dimension item, drag it around. Now you'll notice the dimension item has a 5th little circle. That 5th little circle right here is the leader. So if I click on this, I can just simply drag the leader around and have it point to wherever I want it to point to. Now, I want to add this image to all the groups. So I've only been working on hole 1 right now. So if I look at hole 2, there's no image there. Now I can go to hole 2 and go through the same process, but I'd rather add the images to all the groups at the same time. There's another tool available to you called the Quick Group Edit. It works like the Quick Dimension Edit, where I can select multiple groups at the same time and make editing changes to it. So I'm going to click on the Quick Group Edit. I've already worked on hole 1, so now I want to work on holes 2 through 6. Let's go ahead and we'll do sequential evaluation. We'll add the process reset button. Now I'm going to add that picture resource. When I click on that, you'll notice our picture resource is still there. I'm going to click on this and say Open. That will add it to each one of the groups. I'll change the background color. Apply those changes, say OK. Now if I look at hole 2, hole 3, hole 4, etc., they all have the images in there. One problem you will encounter setting up the detail view is the space. When you're in the edit mode, you have the buttons up here at the top and you have the menus here on the right side, so you can change the individual objects that you click on. Well, that's not really how the operator is going to see it while in the detailed view. you can click on the Detail Edit View button right here, and that will hide all the editing buttons, and it will give you some tools here on the left-hand side where I can now make editing changes to the group. You've got Edit, Containers, Lock Leader, Arrange Cascade, and Arrange Square. Edit will let you edit the properties of each object on the page. So if I want to change the picture, for example, or possibly change the scaling, let's change the scaling to 0.8. I can do that here. If I want to make changes to the individual dimension items, I can do that here. When I'm done, I'll say OK. You notice my image shrunk a little bit. But here, you know, I can drag things around, and I don't have to worry about the windows, the menus popping up, the menu selections to edit the properties of the objects. So now I can really focus on moving the dimension items around and making the images or the group look good. I'll talk about the containers in a minute. This lock leader is a nice feature. If I lock my leader and drag objects around, you'll notice that the leader for the dimension items will move with the image, and vice versa. If I move the dimension items, you'll see that the object or the leader stays fixed. I'm going to unlock that right now. The Arrange Cascade and Arrange Square are useful as well. If I've got a page that has 50 dimension items on it, it may become difficult to try to locate the dimension items and drag them around. I can do Arrange Cascade, and that will arrange them in the upper left-hand corner to the lower right-hand corner. And it's easier to identify where they are, and then I can start dragging them around. Arrange Square is another nice tool. If I arrange square, it will arrange the dimension items or the objects on the page around the image in an equally spaced way. Again, if I've got a lot of dimension items, this is a very useful tool because it spaces the page more evenly. This particular page is for hole 2. I know that hole 2 is this feature here. Now I could simply drag each dimension item and point that to hole 2. I mean, that's one way you could do this to show the information. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, but when you drag it around, you'll see a blue line, a blue alignment line appear. That's it's a tool that helps you figure out the spacing. Now, the problem with this approach is I know that all of these dimensions are for this particular feature. I'd rather put all of these dimension items into a container. A container is nothing more than a matrix that holds dimension items, and then I can have one leader pointing to the feature. So to set up a container, you simply click on the Containers button. That'll bring up this window, and then I'm going to select all of the dimension items in this on this page, and I'm going to click on Insert New Container. This will put the dimension items into a container. Now a container, you can have a header with a name and a GD&T symbol. The orientation describes the order in which the dimension items are placed in the container. In this case, I've got it checked to vertical, and you can put in the maximum number of dimensions along the orientation axis. So if this is set to vertical and this is set to 4, it'll place 4 dimension items in a column, and then if there's more than 4, it'll add another column. And I can also include a leader here, and I can change the color of the leader if I choose to. So I'm going to call this container hole 2. And I'm going to add a position GD&T symbol, and I'm going to check on show header. Now when I say OK, watch what happens. It placed all the dimension items into a matrix. Basically it's a 1x4, 1 column, 4 dimension items deep. And it has its own leader, so then I can just simply drag this leader to hole 2. Now there are different ways of designing your containers. Let's go to hole 3, and for hole 3 I'm going to set up the container so that it's a horizontal container. This particular feature here is hole 3. So I'll click on the containers button for hole 3, select all of them, insert a new container, change the name to hole 3, give it a position GD&T symbol. Now I'm going to uncheck the vertical and leave the leader and the color the same. I'll say OK. Now this time it placed all of the dimension items horizontally. If you want, you can mix it up and maybe make a 2x2 grid. I'll do that for hole 4. Go to containers, select all, insert new, call this hole 4. Oops. Give it a GD&T symbol. Now I'm going to leave this set to, no I'm not, I'm going to change, I'm going to make this horizontal, and I'm going to enter the number 2 for the number of dimensions along the orientation axes. And what this will do is it'll take the X and the Y, put it into a row, and then put the true position and the diameter in a second row. Yeah, I probably should change the size of the picture, make it a little smaller. I'll go to the edit. By the way, notice the box next to each dimension name here. That's telling you that the dimension is part of a container. You'll see that from time to time in the software depending upon what you're doing. Let's knock this down to 0.8, say OK. Makes it a little smaller. And I can drag it around and make it look pretty. Let's go ahead and set up hole 5. I'll add a container. Hole 5 is down here. Insert new container. We'll call this hole 5. We'll give it a header. I'm going to make this horizontal, leave the arrow alone, say OK. Drag this up here, drag this down here. And we'll lock our leader, drag it around, see how that works. You can also, you also have buttons that'll let you zoom in and zoom out as well. So when you're in the detail view, you notice you got zoom in, zoom out, auto scale, and select a box. Zoom in will take you this way, zoom out will take you this way. Auto scale will do this. Select a box, I can pick a box where I want to see. So you have tools that'll let you navigate the graphics area. Let's go ahead and do hole 6. Hole 6 is down here. We'll add another container. Make this horizontal. Hole 6. Give it a header. Leave the leader the same, don't change the color. And I think you get the idea. Let's drag this around. If I click on the return to normal edit, I'm back to my normal editing tool. So if I click on this, you'll see the menu on the right hand side to let you make changes to it. Now notice when you're not in the detail view, if I click on the container, you're editing the container. I can't get access to the dimension items. I have to go back to the detail view and then edit it this way. Let's return to the normal edit. Let's save the solution and go to the view mode and see what it looks like. Now I never did do hole 1. Hole 2, hole 3, hole 4, hole 5, and hole 6. If this was a real application, I probably wouldn't have my my 6 holes organized into 6 different groups. I'd probably put it all in one group, and I would condense some of the dimension items so I could save on space if I were in the detail view. So I'm going to switch back to the edit mode, and I'm going to redo this so that all of the dimensions are in one group and set it up accordingly. So first thing I'm going to do is go to the dimension organizer, and I'm going to remove all these groups except for hole 1. And I'm going to call this 6-hole pattern. And I'll just call it hole pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and put the other dimensions in this group. I'll start with 2. And then I'll add to the group. Then I'll do 3. Add to the group. Hole 4. Add to the group. Hole 5. Add to the group. And hole 6. So now I have all the holes, all the data in one group. I've called this group hole pattern. So as you can see, I've got a mess here. I need to clean this up. Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to take the linear dimensions and I want to reduce the size. I really don't need the graphs for the linear dimensions. I really just need the true positions because that's where the instruction is going to occur. So I'll use the quick dimension edit, and I'll select all of the X's, and I'll change the startup graphics view to none. Do that for all the Y's. And I'll change the instructions here too. If there is no adjustments, I'm just gonna display the deviation to nominal. And I'll do that for all the x's. So now I've reduced all my linear dimensions so that they no longer include a graph. And I have them all organized into one group, hole pattern. So now what I'd like to do is I'll switch to the detail edit view and I'll start building my containers. Now before I was including the header and the GD&T symbol. I'm not going to do that for each container. I'm just going to place them into a container. Now I'm going to do it in a different way. I want to do it in a 2x2 grid. So I'll start with 1, insert a container, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, and 6. Now, I'm not going to really be concerned about the container name or the GD&T symbol because I'm not going to show a header. But what I am going to do is I'm going to change it so it's each one of them, the orientation is horizontal, and it's going to be a 2x2 grid. I'll leave the arrow alone. I'll do that for the 6, hole 5, hole 4, hole 3, and hole 1. So I now have all the holes in containers, the 6 holes. I'll say OK. And here you can see I've got all the containers distributed or randomly placed in the group. Now here is a time where the arrange by square is very handy. I can click on arrange by square and it rearranged my hole pattern accordingly, my holes, my containers accordingly. The one problem with this is they're kind of out of order. It starts in the upper left-hand corner and distributes the containers equally about, starting in the upper left-hand corner, going in a clockwise fashion. So really I want this to be 3, 2, 1, 6, 5, and then 4. So the order in which you have the containers listed here will dictate the order in which they appear when you do the arrange by square. So I want to start with 3. I'll move that up to the top. Then 2. Then 1. Then 6. Then 5. Then 4. So now, I'm going to shorten these up so that I can actually work on them and they're not pointing out in space. Now if I arrange by square, I've got 3, 2, 1. Oh, I've got lock. I had the dimension items locked. 3, 2, 1, 6, 5, 4. So I've got them right. Now it's just a matter of cleaning it up. Here's 2. Here's 3. Here's 4. Here's 5. And finally 6. I can actually reduce the size of the image even more. I'll go to Edit, change the scaling so it's more like 0.7. And then arrange by square again. I'll unlock it this time. And it makes it even a little easier to read. So you can see it's pretty simple to set up the detail view. Let's go back to our normal edit. Click on the Save button, then go to the View mode, and you can see what it looks like. I mean, you could space it out some more if you want and fine-tune it. It's entirely up to you how you want to manage it. Now, one other point I want to tell you about the detail view. The scale to fit feature is kind of nice because you can set it up so by default you see the whole graphics. Now, if you want to make that by default, when you're in the edit mode, click on the detail view, click on the machine A, the reaction plane you want to affect, check the scale, and click on the others to make sure that they're checked. If you check on the template, that'll become the default, and so if any new plans are created, they will the scale to fit will be checked. So if we go to View, you can see that it's by default it's scale to fit. And if the operator needs to zoom in to get more instructions, he can uncheck it and then simply select and then zoom in if he wants to see it even closer up. Something I noticed, I didn't put the deviation from nominal for the Y dimension. So let me go ahead and fix that. I'll go to the edit mode, choose the quick dimension edit, select all the Y's, and then I will insert the last run deviation from nominal, apply the changes, say OK. There we go. Go back to the view mode. I'll go ahead and zoom in. Yeah, there, now I have the deviation from nominal. So this solution is complete. Now, as you can see, creating the detail view really isn't difficult. It's more time consuming to get the picture, the image, and the dimension items laid out so that it fits in the screen right and looks good for the operator.